Madam President, last week, the Trump administration took a very important step, a step to end the war on coal and the war on American energy. The Environmental Protection Agency said that it has begun the formal process to roll back the Obama administration's so-called Clean Power Plan. This plan was the cornerstone of the Democratic efforts to destroy the reliable forms of energy that the American public continues to use today. Well, my goal is to make energy as clean as we can, as fast as we can, without raising costs on American families. The Trump administration wants exactly the same thing. The steps it announced last week will help provide greater energy security, more jobs, and a stronger economy. This is exactly what President Trump promised that he would do. It is exactly what the American people voted for last November. Americans said that they were tired of Washington's out-of-control regulators. President Trump took action right away. He issued an executive order in March telling his administration to go back and review some of President Obama's worst energy regulations. One of those was the Clean Power Plan. It's a plan that tried to regulate power plants in a way that wasn't even allowed under the Clean Air Act. President Trump's executive order was the first step in correcting this bureaucratic overreach. Last week's announcement by the Environmental Protection Agency was the next step. With this move, the agency is saying that Washington will no longer trample on the law. It tells the rest of Washington that there are limits. So I applaud President Trump and Scott Pruitt, the administrator of the EPA. The agency was created because America needed to do a better job of making sure that we had clean air, clean land, and clean water. There's a right way to do this job, and for a long time, the agency did its job well. We can strike and need to strike the right balance. We need to do that again so that we can protect our environment while allowing our economy to grow. We can have reasonable regulations that protect Americans while also respecting the law. My home state of Wyoming is one of the most pristine, beautiful places in the world, and it is one of the most energy-rich places in the world. Wyoming has struck the balance successfully, and so have many other states, Madam President. We're addressing threats to our environment through the cooperation of states, towns, Indian tribes, and Washington. The Environmental Protection Agency did not get the balance right with its Clean Power Plan. It overstepped its bounds, overstepped the bounds to fulfill a political agenda. In 2008, when Barack Obama was running for president, he said that under his policies, he said, quote, if somebody wants to build a coal-fired power plant, they can. But he went on to say, it's just that it will bankrupt them. Bankrupt them. Well, once he got into office, he did everything he could to keep that promise and to bankrupt as many coal companies as possible. The Obama administration pushed out unnecessary, unlawful regulations on coal producers, on power plants, and on their customers. Look at the difference between the two presidents. President Obama promised to bankrupt American energy producers, and then he misused his power in order to do it. President Trump promised to promote American energy security and economic growth, and he's following the law to do that. The law never gave the Environmental Protection Agency the authority to write its Clean Power Plan. The agency went ahead and did it anyway. That's why states sued the federal government to block this destructive bureaucratic overreach. States knew, people knew that the Environmental Protection Agency had written a dangerous regulation that would shut down American power plants and would raise energy costs for American families. Their rule would have thrown thousands of people out of work in Wyoming and in other states. It would have led to as much as $33 billion in compliance costs in the year 2030. That's what the agency estimates, $33 billion in compliance costs. Last year, the Supreme Court decided that this rule could do so much damage that the court stopped President Obama in his tracks. Last week, the agency recognizes that there is a better way. It's going through the process to set aside the old rule and take a fresh look at what it could or should do legally. It said that any regulations of these power plants is going to be done the way every new regulation should be done. That means listening to the people who have the most at stake, like the states and the communities affected by these regulations. It's especially true in places like Wyoming, where there are already partnerships in place, partnerships that can accomplish many of the goals of the new rules. It means that Washington should consider the costs as well as the benefits of regulation, and it should use reasonable estimates about both the costs and the benefits. In 2015, the Supreme Court criticized the Obama administration for another rule that made this same mistake. The court says it's not, quote, rational, never mind appropriate, to impose billions of dollars in economic costs in return for a few dollars in health or environmental benefits. That's the court's. You know, if Washington is going to write regulations the way that they should be done, this means acting rationally, and it means following the law. The Clean Air Act didn't give the Environmental Protection Agency the authority to write its so-called Clean Power Plan. That should have stopped the regulators right there and then. It should not have been a sign for regulators to interpret the law in a brand new way that Congress never intended. That's what the Obama administration did anyway. If Washington does regulations right, that means doing them in a way that provides clarity, not confusion, not more questions. It means doing what's best for America, not just what is the preference of the people writing the regulations. Madam President, we are blessed in this country with enormous natural resources. Our goal should be to use these resources responsibly in ways that protect our environment and help to make our economy grow. We need a strong economy. That's what the American people are looking for. Over the 8 years of the Obama administration, the leaders of the EPA created broad and legally questionable new regulations. They declared a war on coal and a war on American energy. Under the Trump administration, the war is over, and America, Madam President, is back on the right track. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.